together to do that. And we had not been into the chamber yet, and so the speaker and the leadership of the Congress led us into, both Democrats, Republicans led us into the hall for the first time. And my first impressions of the floor and the chamber of the House of Representatives were interesting. First of all, on TV it looks much, much larger than it really is on the floor. And that big flag that you always see behind the speaker is really not that big. Really not that big. And there are no assigned seats in the hall of the House of Representatives. We all sit where we come into the chamber, and they talk to us about voting and standing on the dais there with the speaker and taking our photographs. It was pretty humbling. But the awesomeness of standing in that chamber and the responsibility that I would have, that my vote, one vote, was going to affect so many people, 300 million people in the state of Ohio. And in Latin, they have the saying on the chamber there, from many there is one. From many there is one. And really that was driven home when I was on that chamber floor and trying to understand the awesomeness and gravity of what my responsibility is. And think about it. I was thinking the whole time that I have one son, and I have one vote to send my son to war. And I take that very, very seriously. And the profound responsibility that we have as a country to help the people, to help the least among us, so that we can all live and believe in what our founders founded this country on, that we are all entitled to life, liberty, and happiness, and that pursuit thereof. And that my children and your children and grandchildren will have the same opportunities that my parents and grandparents have had in this great country. And that's the awesomeness of what I was feeling while I was standing in that chamber. That was the responsibility that I believed that I was going to have to undertake. And then we left the chamber and got our offices set up, and afterwards, the next week, we went to Harvard University. We were in Boston for a week, and they were briefing us. All the best minds of the country were gathered to brief the new members of Congress, telling us about health care, telling us about the war in Iraq, telling us about our federal budget process, telling us about education and investment in our country. And I can tell you that it was remarkably intriguing to listen, both the pros and the cons for some of these different issues, and to see that there is consensus out there. There is consensus out there that we can move out of this, and we can move out of our economic uncertainty, and that we can have better and brighter days ahead of us. And some of the best minds of our country have said this election, with the election of President Obama and the statement that was made, because President Obama had quite a few African Americans voting for him, and he also had quite a few middle-class Americans voting for him. But he also had a lot of independent voters who crossed over, who maybe have voted Republican in the past, that believed in his message of hope and promise that there are better days ahead for our country. And the responsibility that he must feel now as a president. And I saw pictures before the campaign and those afterwards, and I saw those little streaks of gray starting on the head. I was telling my wife, I said, boy, I hope after this election and then more to come, that the problems that face our country can make even the most prepared elected officials have the challenges that are in front of us be a little bit, how shall I say, overwhelmed by the awesomeness of the challenges that are there. But we can do this, my friends. We can pull out of this economic doldrum. We can make the difference for our country, and now we have the responsibility to do it. And the nation is looking to the Democratic Party, who won this election, to stand up and champion a change, a message of change, a direction for change, legislation that is going to be about change, to put our country on the track that is going to make us more prosperous, that is going to make us better educated, that is going to make our children and grandchildren have the opportunities that we all believed in. But I want to say this. One thing that I took from Harvard University, one thing that I was able to take away from that, where the Democrats and Republicans all sat around the table, is that our differences are not as great as we like to talk about in the campaigns. Our differences are not as great as we like to talk about in the campaigns. There are certain issues that we may not ever have an agreement on. There are certain beliefs that we may never come to an agreement on. But our differences are not as dissimilar as our likenesses. And the fact that we all believe that America should be on a trajectory towards prosperity. We all believe that we should have the opportunity to have education for our children. How we get there is what we argue about. And I've been married now for 11 years, honey, and we often argue about how we get to the location, and oftentimes I'm wrong. She's right about the direction. So I will take counsel from Mrs. Stacy Kennedy Boccieri often. But I say that because the partisanship that has gripped Washington, and a lot of us talked in this dialogue that we had, where we ran against Washington. We ran against what is happening there. And we said that now with 54 newly elected members of Congress, it's our responsibility to change that, to change the direction. So we will see how long this belief in kind of euphoria, not only in our election, but in the election of Obama, continues, and how we can change our country. But seriously, this is an election that has tremendous weight and responsibility with it. And I want you to know that it will be an honor and a privilege to serve all of you in Washington, D.C., to work hard, to put our state back on track. And speaking with the governor this week in the legislature, as I finished my responsibilities as a senator, he has told me that Ohio, the great state of Ohio, really needs some strong leadership from our leaders in Washington. And our state has suffered disproportionately to the rest of the country. In fact, we have not come out of the 2001 recession. And it is going to take a lot of investment from the federal government to make sure that we get over that hump and back on track. But the good news is that we have all the tools in the toolbox. We've just got to find the right resolve, we've got to find the right courage, and we've got to find the right attitude to put our country and our state on the track that we need to solve these challenges. So I want to tell you that I understand that message from our founders. From many, there are one. From this room of 150 people, you will have one voice in Washington. And I want you to know that I will speak loudly and often for all of you. And we may not agree sometimes on how to get there, but I will tell you this. I will give you my pledge that I will be honest and open, accessible, and that you will have a congressman that you will say that although we may not agree on some things, he's fighting for us, he believes what he's fighting for, and he believes in the hope and promise of America. Thank you.